So he says, I'll do it. And that's the cool thing about a lot of fantasy stories. The goal seems impossible. But you notice the last thing he said? But I do not know the way. And that's where the empowerment comes in. He knows he's going to have to do something to get it done. Get whatever help that he needs. So this is an example. And I think this works really well in fantasy because as we read it, we might be thinking, you know, I'm kind of like Frodo. I don't feel very powerful. I don't feel like I can do all these great things. And we might have to be looking for that power in our own lives to conquer the Saurons that we face, or dragons, or whatever else it might be. It instills courage. As our reader sees the success, it actually works to help encourage the reader as well. And somebody might be thinking, but it's just a story, it's fiction. How does it work? Let me tell you, it works. I have received literally thousands of messages from readers telling me that my stories do encourage them. All the way from a little girl who wrote and said, 6-year-old wrote and said, my mommy read Raising Dragons to me, and now I'm not afraid to sleep without my nightlight. She got courage. I heard from my grandmother who said that her granddaughter read my books and decided not to kill herself because of these stories. She had the courage to live. And you go on and on and on. Examples and stories help encourage the readers. Also, in fantasy, you're going to see a lot our hero learning from a spiritual God. There's a lot they have to learn because they have to achieve this goal and defeat the enemies and the oppressors and get rid of them. But also, good fantasy will instill themes. And in those, the process, the hero is going to learn something. It's usually a spiritual guide that brings it along. Lord of the Rings, it's Gandalf. In my books, in one series, it's Professor Hamilton, one of their teachers, also Merlin. And you usually find this coming into the story early in the story, so that the main character, the hero, can contemplate what they've learned and apply it later. So here we see Frodo learning from a spiritual God. Now, one thing about Lord of the Rings is it doesn't often have a direct connection to a biblical worldview. There's not much talking about God in the story, but it's still there. And here's an example with Frodo talking to Gandalf. They're in what's called the Mines of Moria, and we're going to hear Frodo lamenting about what's going on. Since there are other forces besides the forces of evil, well, what are those, right? And if Bilbo was meant to find the ring, that means someone meant him to find it. A very not direct reference to a God figure, but certainly implied strongly. So Frodo gets this little lesson. And as the story goes on, it shows some of the power that comes to play. Frodo now is going to be facing this huge monster called a Balrog. And there's no way that Frodo can defeat this thing. But our spiritual guide comes and shows some of the power that he has, and Frodo gets the empowerment he needs. It also, again, shows some reference to higher power. You'll hear Gandalf talk about it. He says, I'm the servant of the secret fire, the wielder of the flame. He's saying, I'm an instrument of something higher than myself. So that empowerment comes from on high, and Frodo's learning all these things, that there's a lot more to this world than what he can see. Now, a good fantasy story is going to show that the hero has applied what he has learned. Remember what we heard Frodo learning from Gandalf? Then in the next scene, Gandalf is taken away. That whip grabs his foot, and off he goes, and we don't see Gandalf again for a long, long time. In most good fantasy stories, the hero is going to lose his spiritual guide for a while. Anybody know why? Why is that? spiritual guide to be a crutch that he has to have all the time, but there's also one other reason. And that's to prove that he's learned what he had been taught. And if the spiritual guide is gone, then he applies what he learned that proves that it had effect. And here we have Frodo. Because of his friends who are going with him to get the ring to Mount Doom, some of them are dying because of it. Frodo decides, well, maybe I should go alone because I don't want my friends to die. And here he's trying to decide if that's what he should do. And we're going to see Gandalf's lesson come back to play. So he applied it. Did he do the right thing? Well, that's up for the reader to decide, but he had to decide what to do with the time that was given to him. He got the lesson, he learned it, I'm going to be sacrificial. I'm going to go by myself because I don't want my friends to die anymore. That's selfless behavior. So we see that the character learns. It also inspires love and friendship. Fantasy shows the friendship characteristics of life stronger than most other genres, especially male-to-male friendships. You know, there's a lot of genres that show male-female friendships, maybe two friends sometimes, and female-to-female friendships. We see that a lot, but strong male-to-male friendships are more common in fantasy. Something I'd like to see more of because that's one thing. I think girls get this. You can be close friends and kindred spirits, as they say, but a lot of times guys don't get that. We get together and watch sports, but the mutual encouragement and close heart-to-heart friendships is, I think, a little rarer among males. So we want to see more of that. Let's show you an example of that. I love this scene because of the male-to-male friendships. Frodo is actually on the slopes of Mount Doom. He's almost there. And since he's the ring bearer, he's the only one who can carry the ring. Sam, who's with him, can't carry it for him. Now Sam, he's another hobbit. He empathizes. He is there as the encourager. He's not, Gandalf isn't a hobbit. He doesn't understand what Frodo's thinking. And same with Aragorn. He's a warrior. But Sam understands Frodo. And so he's there to encourage him and remind him of why they're doing this in the first place. And that is to rescue their home, called the Shire. And we're going to see the kind of encouragement. To me, it just gives me the chills. So we're going to watch this. Beautiful picture of friendship. And I think as we read stories like that, we might be thinking, oh, I wish I had a friend like that. Maybe some of you do. Or I wish I could be a friend like that. That may be an even more important thing. I have a friend like that. My wife is my closest friend. I don't know if she can't cure me at Mount Doom, but she would if she could and give it her best shot. So I love this picture of friendship. We see that more in fantasy than a lot of other genres. Knights in shining armor. When I get drawings from boys, they're often like this. You see this guy, he's ready for war. He's got a sword, he's got a bow and arrow, he's got a boomerang, he's got a gun. He's ready to fight. So I know this may not be politically correct, but boys and girls are different. Their inherently different. I know I've had 4 girls and 3 boys, and they're just different. Boys, they want to draw swords. They draw swords for me and send them all the time. I think they're wired to fight. And the nice thing about fantasy is it tells the young reader, yes, you are wired to fight. And here's why you should fight. Here's what you should fight for. There's going to be violence in just about any fantasy story. A good, positive fantasy is going to show the violence does something positive. Does that violent act bring about a good end? Did you just rescue the mate? Did you free the innocent from their prisons? Did you unchain the slaves from the oppressors? The violent act brings about some kind of really good, positive end. So this is what tells the young reader is, especially the males, I know you feel like you're wired to fight. And for example, those of you who have boys at home, even when they're 2 years old, and you give a little boy a banana, what does it become? It's a gun, right? I mean, if you give a little girl a banana, she eats it. Or a telephone, yes. Isn't that strange? But if you give a little boy, it's a gun. They shoot each other. And they're wired differently. So what this is telling the young male is, we recognize your wiring. But don't be the bully. Don't be the oppressor. Be the one who rescues the oppressors. And it will show that kind of violence, that it is channeled toward good things. You be the one that stands up for the victim, not the one who makes victims of others. And we see that in the good parents. Another thing is, I find that young males want to talk big. They want to breathe fire. And it starts very young. My dad beat up your dad. And there's trash talking, and we talk about the insults, cutting people down. For some reason, I think, especially young males, feel the need to be powerful with their words. But we don't want them to be bullies with their words and cut people down and insult. Good fantasy is going to show heroes and characters who are very glib and are good speakers and use their words to be encouragers. And it tells young readers, I know that you're built to be powerful with your words. Here's how you should do it, and here's the purpose behind it. To build people up and not to tear down. And when they see examples of this again and again and again, they will, I hope, want to start using their words to mend people, bring them consolation and comfort, and build them up rather than be the one who rips them apart. Here's an example of that from Lord of the Rings. We have, Frodo and Sam are going up Mount Doom. The reason they're able to is because our hero Aragorn, has drawn all the bad guys, all the orcs, out of Mordor and challenged them to fight. Come out of the East and fight with us in order to help Frodo. The problem is that our human army, the good guys, are way outnumbered by the horrible orcs that are marching out, so they're scared. Aragorn, being the established warrior, they'll listen to him. And then we hear the words of encouragement. And the reason this works in fantasy, because in fantasy we go, well, sure, you can talk like that. In other genres say, well, nobody's that good of a speaker to come up with a speech like that. But it works in fantasy. And let's see what he said.